7 years already? God damn. Well, plus 7 years plus 1 week. Sorry about that. This recording this took a little bit. Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Guacamelee Super Turbo Championship Edition. In the last part, we started off we finished off the areas we were in before and found ourselves here in the Temple of War for 1400 videos. And now, what do you say we finish this place off and go a bit further for our 7th anniversary, plus 1 week. Now, I'll talk more about how weird it is to be here for 7 years already in a few moments. But for right now, we might as well talk about the Temple of War, because honestly, we're almost done with this area. There's still going to be an item I'm going to need to come back for later on, if I recall correctly, just because I didn't grab it or I didn't have the ability for it, but that's just because of how I'm going to be handling the cleanup for this game. The rest of this area is pretty short, though this is a potentially pretty deadly room because I think you can get crushed here, and that's no good. Thankfully, they give you more or less plenty of time if you just dodge forward and do maybe some ballsy moves like jumping over to the first row of spikes just to get a bit of a head start on running. It's not Guacamelee 2 where these kind of spikes are one-shot, or rather an instant kill reset. Because as of recording this, I have beaten and 100% of Guacamelee 2, and I did pretty well time-wise too.
The ceremony is complete. The great temple shall rise. The day of reckoning is at hand.
Yes! At last I can incinerate this nuisance of a woman!
I should think not. No finger shall be laid upon the sacrificial virgin. She was born the day of the last solar eclipse and is needed for the final ceremony.
Did you just say sacrificial virgin? Yeah, about that.
Hush now, my pretty. Fear not. Off with you, borracho. The great temple rises above the Sierra. Everything the light touches will soon be mine, engulfed by the blight of the dead world. And you, my dear, will be my queen.
Your queen? I don't think so.
Haha! Now surely you'll allow me to rearroast this Chiquita!
No, leave us alone.
You'll regret those words. You shall be my bride, willing or otherwise. All will be mine.
Your proclamations and threats don't impress me. I'm a simple girl, and I'll never love a monster like you. Besides, my heart already belongs to someone else.
Muchachita, how naive. Your heart's desires shall be of little consequence once you cross the world of the dead with me. Mortal biology doesn't hold up very well on the other side.
You won't get away with this. You will be stopped. Your overconfidence is your weakness.
Your faith in your friends is yours. Oops, I hope that wasn't your hero.
Juan! No!
Foolish girl. This is no fairy tale. Happy endings are for children.
Please, just let me liquefy this luchador and give me my birthday present!
This hero has wasted enough of my time. The solar eclipse approaches, and much preparation is needed before the final sacrifice. Flameface, I'll be expecting pollo frito for dinner. Come now, my sweet. We must prepare for the final ceremony.
Hoorah!
Juan!
I guess you want to hear my story. Holy giblets!
I just love how blunt that is. Either way, next major boss fight finally is Flameface. And he loves teleporting all over the place, just like STCE. And he's invulnerable when he's doing so. However, unlike STCE, he is only ever in one realm. You can only ever truly damage him in the world of the living. However, for the sake of annoyance, he loves to summon little skeleton mooks in the world of the dead, just so you have to flip yourself between so you can make sure there's no real threats around. Thankfully, you can dodge a good amount of his attacks, and when he's not teleporting, his attacks generally leave him fairly open to some damage. Comparatively, I'd honestly say STCE is the harder boss fight just because of how much is going on, though I do admit, when he's like this, he can pretty hard to hit. When he's doing this attack, he's summoning lava on the ground, and that does instant kill you, I believe. I've actually never gotten hit by it, but you want to be in the world of the dead when that happens, no matter what. Boss fights, once you get Deluxo, I'm not entirely sure how the damage formula works for that. They probably still do the same amount of damage that you would do normally, honestly. But it just feels like Deluxo does, Intenso rather, not Deluxo. Why'd I say Deluxo? It does more damage. Maybe due to the impact, shakes you get. The biggest annoyance is when he starts to spam this move a bit later on his health bar, but on the whole, pretty easy boss fight, I have to say. Though, throwing him is also a trial in and of itself, just because he moves around so much.
Yeah. How can my guns loose to your fists? I can't believe it. You'll never stop him, you know. Once Kalaka completes the final ceremony in the Great Temple above the Sierra, he will merge the worlds together and rule it all. You're doomed. Now please, this is my final moment. Let me die in peace.
You know, that's kind of sad somehow. I don't know why. But now we're back in the main Temple of War, and hey, a Chuzu statue, and more importantly, a stamina up. I will take that. Thank you. Though I'll also take the Chuzu statue, because, well, I don't really have a choose, do I?
Nice job with Flameface, man. Makes me almost not hate you as much for breaking all my stuff! Alrighty, time for a biggie. Grab onto a wall while holding Y, press up to goat climb.
The closest I could compare this to is a vertical shine spark from Metroid, only you can do it only when you're climbing onto a wall. Notable though, this does have an extra property the game doesn't exactly tell you about unless you do it the first time, and we'll see it right here. It technically also counts as a rooster uppercut type attack in that it can break red blocks. And that is very important to know for some little platforming puzzles like that. Of course, you could be like me and be the idiot who, on my first playthrough, instead of realizing that, just decided to, at the last second of goat climbs where I had to break red blocks like that, jump off the wall and do a quick rooster uppercut. I think you can do that. I recall being able to do that. But if you can't, I don't know how I beat the game then, my first playthrough. Thankfully, this is also a dungeon that's kind enough to leave you right off at the exit. Unlike the Temple of Rain where you had to backtrack a little bit. On the whole, the Temple of War has some pretty fun platforming, admittedly, and I do like the Flame-Face boss, even though he's on the easy side. But the ultimate reason we come here is pretty much just for the goat climb when you get down to it narrative, outside of the narrative. Though actually, I think we got something else here, but I actually completely forget. The blue attack, that's right. Those breaks between recordings for this particular LP kind of make my brain go all screwy as to what I remember. Yeah, 91%. I believe that means I missed one item somewhere in there. I'll come back for it later. Thankfully, this game is also kind enough to put Olmecs in basically any given area. With that, we're now heading back through the deserts. However, I'm not going to jump cut through this like I may have in some other games where I'm just heading to the next objective, because there is some stuff we're going to be getting along the way. Namely, we're going to be heading to one pretty familiar area at the end of the desert, though it's worth noting now that we have the goat climb combined with the dash attack. I can't remember the name of for some reason, probably because it's the dashing derp derp, I think. Actually, no, I think that's the name of it. We can actually completely go over the surface of the desert now. We don't need to head into the caverns at all anymore. You're still going to want to eventually just for some collection stuff, but for right now, we're surface dwellers, basically. But yeah, 7 years doing this. It's kind of weird looking back, because that time has flown pretty well. I think I brought this up in some previous year anniversary specials and such, maybe even some video numbers, but it's weird to look back 7 years ago to 2011. To Pat and I, because Matt went to a different school, as I mentioned before, talking about doing this. The original idea we had for a name was FPS 3, not FPS Gamers 3, and I really do need to change that name because it's just not relevant anymore, really, is the biggest thing with it. And the reason we did that was not only because all of us play some amount of first-person shooters, but there were 3 of us, which is where the number came from. PS could also be seen as persons. So that was the reasoning I kind of thought of back then. Of course, we had to go with FPS Gamers, just because apparently FPS 3 was taken. I've never actually seen what that channel does, or if it even still exists anymore. But that's part of the story there. I'm still trying to think of what I could change this channel name to, but I'm not good with naming things. There's a reason, like, say, Maple Story 2 just came out for those who are in the future, and my friends and I on the main Discord server I'm in play that. I just went with my old D&D character's name for that, Riddle, spelled R-Y-D-L-E, which was a partial reference to my brother, because Star Wars The Old Republic, the MMO, that I think is still active at this point, his character's name was Riddle Me This, as was my D&D's character's name. However, I did mine as a corruption. As while the Riddle part was spelled the same, I spelled the last name wrong. Because, if it's not entirely obvious, actually no, it's probably not that obvious. I love Batman the Animated Series, as did he, because in fact it aired when he was a kid. By the time I was born, I think Batman Beyond hadn't started airing, but I think Batman the Animated Series was damn near done. At least Season 4 was probably the only one that hadn't aired, but yeah, it's weird looking back. Why, hello there! You must be wondering what I'm doing in this guano stinking cave. Well, I just happen to be looking for an adventuresome-looking person like yourself. I have a business proposition for you, Luchador. See this mysterious old door? Nobody really knows where it leads, but something terrible must have happened here. It looks like the door to one of the ancient hidden realms of Guacamelee, but those were ancient places of mystical power. Who could have caused such damage to such a place? And what's that smoky smell? I don't think it's just the guano. Anyway, who knows, right? There's probably some cool stuff going on down there. But to break through such magical rubble, you would certainly need some dynamita espectrical. It's a magical explosive, quite rare. Me? Oh, why yes, I have a stick right here. And I'm not the sort to venture into these kind of places myself. So, what do you say, Luchador? Want to buy my dynamita espectrical to find out what lies beyond through yon ancient gate? Sure, why not? It's only $100. Pleasure doing business with you. Please, you do the honors. What? Nothing happened. Weird. Honestly, I haven't used magical explosives before. Maybe you did it wrong? Just swap to the world of the dead. Welcome to Guacamelee, except not entirely. We'll be seeing a bit more of this place later on because there's an actual hole over here to our actual destination here. This is entirely optional. You don't need to come here. However, if you're going for 100%, you need to anyway. Welcome to a loading screen leading to El Infernio. Welcome to hell! Quite literally, this is the actual world of the dead. I suppose Underworld might be better suited, actually. And there is quite a bit for us to do here, but also not, just due to how this area is structured. More on that in a few moments, but we're going to be here for like the next 20 minutes or so. So, if you're looking for more plot progression of sorts, you're going to be skipping ahead a good bit, because I take care of a lot of side quests. Whoa, Luchador! How'd you get down here? Someone checked your papers? The huge hole in the wall. Right. You can thank Kalaka for that. Well, you're in El Infernio now. El Diablo once kept this place running very smoothly, but since Kalaka's uprising, he's missing and it's pandemonium around here. Yeah, looks like it. This isn't exactly a picture-perfect hell, is it? El Diablo used to run this place from atop that huge tower back there. I've never been above the 3rd floor, but I heard he has a really sweet office. Yeah, you have to figure. This place has become so disorderly since the Kalaka teamed up with the sorceress and escaped. Say what you will about El Diablo, but he kept things predictable. The torture kind of sucked, though. Yeah, it sounds about right. Thankfully, there's an Olmec here, so you need to have a quick travel. They say Kalaka raised his army from spare bones lying around, so the skeletons invading your world are puppets, not people. Even if he hadn't destroyed our bookkeeping systems, that would have thrown the census records completely out of whack. But did he give one thought to the hassle he was causing? Not very likely. Selfish, right? And welcome to 669. It's crazy around here these days. I'm pretty sure I saw a roaster run by earlier. Maybe it's like someone's pet? Maybe. How do you think I stay so lean? The ball and chain really is actually a really good workout. Kalaka does not have the proper permits for raising an undead army down here. If El Diablo were still here, he would be losing it. I wonder where he is. Oh, speak of the devil. Blasted. Button. Open. Distort. I have work to do. Ah! Oh, Luchador. I was just examining this elevator. My elevator, which is broken, to my office, which is filled with very important documents. I've just returned from my little hiatus in the world above, and I'm noticing some tiny changes Kalaka has made around here. For example, he seems to have rigged these doors' locks up to some arbitrary achievement system involving all the old torture rooms upstairs. I don't know if he did this to train his soldiers or as a sick joke or what, but I can't do much about it in my current form. You know, it's quite funny to see you here, Lucidor. Quite a coincidence, really. After I helped you out in such a difficult predicament up in the desert, suddenly you arrive in El Infernio, all muscular and able-bodied. Seems almost like fate, right? Well, why don't you just head on up to the torture chambers and let me know how it goes. El Infernio is basically a giant amount of trials. For instance, Challenge 1. Race to the goal as quickly as you can. These range in time trials where you just have to get to the goal or finish the goal in a certain amount of time or last a certain amount of time in some instances. Reaching the goal, or in the case of combat trials, usually reaching a certain combo count. There are 3 tiers of medals. Bronze, which you get for failing the gold and silver time. Silver for reaching a pretty decent threshold. And gold for not doing it perfectly, but doing certainly really well. The doors downstairs unlock, I think, after 10 of any given medal. I'm not getting all golds, I'll tell you that. I've never been able to get all golds. But I'm definitely getting enough to get the ultimate reward for everything down here. I think it's 10 medals per, but I might be wrong on that, so don't quote me. However, we also can't do all of the trials at this point. We can access the first 12, but there are a few more than that, and we can't get those until probably, if not the end of next part, early 2 parts from now. And I'm going to be off-screening a lot of getting gold medals if I need to. More or less what I'm doing for this LP is showing you each of the trials once, discussing any strategies you might need, and then getting the golds if I need any off-screen. Silvers and bronzes are no problem to get at all. For instance, with this one, to get the gold 200 combo, you're probably going to want to spam your, as you can see I got really close, probably spam a few more special moves just to get those extra combos. The throws are good for combos, but not as good for getting extra hits. This is a particularly annoying trial, because the only way you can kill the enemies is by throwing them into these spikes. And that's surprisingly hard to do, especially when they start throwing the pretty agile skeleton enemies at you later on. The biggest advice I could give for this is try to stun enemies early. For instance, like using Olmec's headbutt to try and stun them and such. But even then, as you can see with the aerial Chupacabra enemies, they get pretty hard to knock into the spikes just because they get up so quickly. I would probably say this is one of the hardest to get a gold medal on. If you can just get the silver, you should be pretty fine. Because thankfully, as I mentioned, the designers were kind enough in that you don't need to get golds on everything to get the ultimate reward. I think there's an achievement for getting a gold and everything, but I'm not too fond of achievements in Guacamelee 1. Guacamelee 2, though, I was actually pretty good at getting achievements. In fact, I'll see if I can find the screenshot I took right now. But as of the time I actually completed Guacamelee 2, which I want to say was like 2 or 3 weeks after release, I was in the pretty high speedrun times for 100%, because the game, when you beat it, keeps track of your times, namely for how long it took you to beat, 100%, and then a hard mode run. I have not done hard mode run, but I did get pretty good on the 100%, which I was pretty proud of that, especially for a first run. In fact, Guacamelee 2, I can say, I think is easily the better game between the two. Some things with the design of Guacamelee are a bit more obvious in it, with like how restrictive some puzzle solutions are. But at the same time, the mechanics on the whole are so much more carefully streamlined and designed that it just comes off as the better product. Some of the easier gold medals, honestly, are challenges like this, though, where you just have to reach the goal within a certain amount of time. Just because if you know how to control Juan really well, you can do really well with this. I think there's only one of these, actually, out of the first 12 that we technically can't do yet due to the fact we don't have a certain ability. I think you can't do it yet. I still can't figure out how to do it. And admittedly, some of the gold times are pretty tight. At the end of any given floor, because each floor of trials only has 4, you're given a little shortcut back to the bottom floor, which I find a bit odd, honestly, as... While I understand having a shortcut, I don't understand having them blocked off, because when you get down to it, there's no real point for it, because once you see the cutscene with the Diablo, they should just have a door that opens, because you don't have to do these challenges in order, from my memory. You just have to get a certain amount to actually unlock the doors downstairs. This is a potentially annoying one just because the way you clear it is a bit unorthodox. You're lasting a certain amount of time on this one. You get the gold for lasting over 1:45. However, the bridge below you collapses if enough enemies get on it. However, you also win the challenge if you die. Or rather, the challenge ends when you die. So you can actively die here and still win, which just feels weird. One thing I will say, though, is that if you need to practice your combos or get some minor coinage, these challenges are pretty good for that just because there's so many enemies in the way. In fact, I think there's an achievement for getting a certain combo. Easily the best place to do it is in one of these. Not this one specific, maybe the one where you need to get a 200 combo, but yeah. Also notable, as you probably saw earlier, the combat challenges often have a little restriction, like you can't dodge, you can't use special moves, no throws. And the way they do that is a bit unorthodox. It's not that you can't do it otherwise you fail, it's that they completely disable your ability to do that ability. Which just feels kind of weird, but at the same time it prevents you from accidentally doing it and failing. So I'm at least glad they taught that kind of thought process. They can get a bit overkill with enemies, I openly admit to that, but on the whole, a lot of these challenges are very easy to clear. It's getting the gold that can be kind of tedious. But I'm just glad they added some sort of challenges to the game, just because otherwise, the side quests as they were are good sources of money, but feel kind of bare. You know what I mean? That's one thing even the sequel does, admittedly. The side quests feel very bare. Admittedly, they do one thing right with the sequel, in that there's a few more differing types of side quests. Like, there's one in particular that relates to the chicken I'm thinking of that I don't want to say anything about at the moment, just because the sequel is still so new. But they do at least some things better, let's like that. One thing I'm not sure about, though, is if there's actual leaderboards for this. It feels like something that would have leaderboards, but I don't actually think there is. Now, something you should know about combat challenges in particular is that I believe the enemy spawns are based off time, not the enemies you've destroyed. So at times, you actually might just want to keep a certain enemy alive by giving them just little happy slaps to keep your combo count up while also delaying for the next enemy to appear. And I think that comes into play, if not in this combat challenge, the next one, where I'm so close to, I think, the gold or silver, and I just miss it because enemies took too long to show up. I don't think it's based off your enemy destruction, so keep that in mind. I'll be able to say for a fact when I actually, go for the golds later on, but yeah. That will be part of cleanup, as with a lot of things. Admittedly, thankfully, compared to some other games, due to the fast teleport system that's better than some other Metroidvanias, and just the structure of Guacamelee, cleanup's not going to take too terribly long. Although some of the maps can be rather big. And the platforming challenges are probably just some of my favorite because of how well Juan controls and with the added mobility that your abilities give you. That just feels nice. Though at the same time, some of the platform challenges themselves can be kind of annoying just due to how they intentionally do some stuff to kind of dick with you. And as you can see, I am cutting this really close, and this is probably an example of just how close you can be. Yikes. 2/100ths of a second. Wow. This is probably the hardest out of all the combat challenges I can think of off the top of my head, just because the limit of not having your special moves makes your combos very limited. Especially given that, with how I play the game, special moves are such an integral part of keeping my combo up because you get some extra hits from them. This is one especially where you might want to delay killing an enemy just for a second, just to let some more enemies spawn. And an admitted kind of painful thing about these combat challenges in particular is with the way the combo system works. Yeah, an extra second with that enemy would have allowed me to keep that combo going. Is when you fail a combo, but then your second combo comprises the other half of the combos you would have needed. Meaning that if you hadn't gotten hit, you would have gotten that gold. that hurts. That hurts quite a bit. Like, let's see, I had 60, I think, on the original combo. And with this, I believe I'm going to make the other 60. Yeah, that gold would have been mine. Ah, that hurts my soul. Thankfully, a lot of these challenges are also so short that retrying them takes no time at all. If it were, say, certain other RPGs where you have hour-long boss fights, you have to redo it all, that's the ultimate kind of pain. I'm looking at a certain 2 Final Fantasies on the PlayStation 2 onwards that had bosses that were over an hour long, sometimes 2 hours, depending, and losing them would be so much progress lost that you just kind of have to put the controller down, look out the window, and have a moment where you consider life and what it's been. I believe this is the one where you can't throw, and one added thing you can do to make yourself a bit faster in this, in terms of reaching the enemies, use the dashing derp, because the distance you get from that is considerable enough to the point where you can keep things flowing well. And make sure to dodge liberally, just because that helps so much with getting combos. In fact, I think you get an extra hit in your combo for dodging an attack effectively, so keep that in mind. You're gonna need to master the combat for these, but the combat's the right kind of easy that mastering it doesn't take too long. Just make sure you take your time at the same time, you know? This is an interesting one, though. I think this is the only one where you automatically get a gold just for finishing it. You may have seen a little jump cut there. That was because I ended up just pressing the select button to restart because I was in here for like 5 minutes and I didn't want to waste all of that time. In fact, the original recording time for this was 1:02. Some of that is load screens, most of that is editing this out. The biggest pain in the ass about this one is the third portal into the, I guess technically the 5th portal into the 6th. Since gravity carries over immediately, you're very likely to just fall right into the next spikes immediately and completely screw up. And us hearing rumbling in the distance is important because that means one of the doors opened. Thankfully, you don't need to go through all of these challenges at once. You can go at them at your own pace. You don't need to do them at all, obviously. So, at the end of the day, this is just a nice little distraction. However, I should note that something changes between Guacamelee Gold and Guacamelee Super Turbo Championship for this area. In that, if you want 100%, this is now required. In the original game, this was just for a bonus costume, more or less, alongside maybe some extra gold and such. In this game, in order to get the best ending, even, because there is multiple endings to this game, you need to do this. More on the exact specifics of that later on, but keep that in mind. Or more accurately, you don't need to do this one. You just need to get the gold medals required to get the gold door unlocked. So you don't need to worry about completing every room 100%, just keep that in mind. And it's at here the game does a bit of a thing. It blockades you. We actually can't access the 4th tier just yet, because we need something that breaks purple blocks. Let's head into the bronze room. Oh wow, would you mind leaving that door open? The AC is busted. It's always been busted. Yeah, I know we don't really have to do all Diablo's work anymore. I honestly just kind of feel bad for the guy. At this point, I'm just writing stream of consciousness and waiting for someone to notice. A bird, a boat, a bird bot, hard to starbird. This is actually pretty good stuff. Now that the Tyrant Diablo is out of the picture, I have so much more time to type my manifestos. Someday these sheep around me will wake up to no devils, no masters. You there, please help me. Can you tell me what my action items are? Please, I just want to synergize one more time. It's been so long. I guess I should be working, but I've been typing a picture of a house instead. Check it out. Huh? That's a chimney with smoke. This is a challenging medium, okay? ASCII art. So we're actually 25% of the way done with El Infernio, which is pretty nice feeling. However, the important thing is in here. We get Pollo Bomba, one of the very few chicken exclusive abilities in the game. We can now press the B button to lay bombs. Think morph ball bombs. It can do damage to enemies, but it's so minuscule from memory that it's not really worth it. This is more or less just going to be used to destroy any purple blocks in our way, which are very few in number in the game if you haven't noticed. With it, we can now actually head up to the 4th tier and sort of access it. But first, I have a shitload of money, so let's get some health chunks. And I honestly forgot how many health and stamina chunks the shop actually can give you. I think it can give you up to 7, which is ridiculous. But hey, if you ever need some extra chunks, they're there. One thing I will give the sequel credit for is that I think it actually gives a bit more purpose to gold, just due to how it handles upgrades. At the same time, though, in a way, the money almost becomes still more worthless at the end of the day, just because of how much each purchase has. Or more accurately, money's more useful in the long term, too, just because of how much more money things cost. At the same time, that still has the inevitable end goal of money being kind of worthless at the end of the day. But yeah, even if we destroy the purple block, we actually can't progress further here in the Devil's Office, because we need another ability to get past all those spikes. It's also why early on you saw me jump cut in and out of a room of a challenge, because we actually can't finish that yet. So for right now, we're just going to jump back over to Santa Luchita, because there's some more side stuff we need to do before we continue on. Even then, Santa Luchita, you need to come here because the entrance to the next area is in Santa Luchita. At this point, since we got the dashing derp, we now have more or less all of Juan's major moves. So we're actually going to head over to Combo Chicken and take out the next, and I think final, of his combo challenges. Ah, the warrior's thirst for knowledge is not easily satiated. Begin your training? Honestly, I think the third batch of combos is harder than this one. Because while this has some of the longest combos, they're a lot more forgiving with the time you need to do them. Which is something I think the sequel also does to an extent. The later challenges are longer, but they give you a bit of leeway with the forgiveness. For instance, a lot of challenges probably would have ended by the time I was able to do that Olmec headbutt. At the same time, though, the scariest thing with the combo chicken challenges is when there's a dodge programmed into the combo, just because, especially if you're closer to a wall, that dodge can be kind of iffy with the timing you need for it. And admittedly, something that the sequel taught me to do a bit more is, in the case that you screw up with Poncho, just let him return to the center of the room because you'll have a higher likelihood of completing the challenge. You are truly amazing, Luchador. Have you ever seen anything like that, Poncho? Poncho? Oh, no. No, Poncho! Don't go into the light! Poncho! How will I find the strength to go on without you? You were the only true friend I've ever had. And for completing Combo Chicken's last combo, we get a stamina piece. Poncho was the only one who really understood me. And that's it for Combo Chicken. He's done. We're actually almost done with all the side quests. There's only a few left in the game, and one of them is back in the canal area. But for right now, it's time for us to head back into Caverna De Pollo, because now that we have the dashing derp, I believe, we can now finish this area off as well. I actually recall the Caverna De Pollo being a longer area, but no, there's only 3 major sections to it. And as with I believe I did with the second section, I'm going to be speeding up the third section. And, just based off the music, take a guess at what game I've been playing. Mega Man 11 is great, by the way. I bought the Switch version with the Amiibo edition, pre-ordered it even, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. I had the PC version ready to record, but due to some frame rate stuff, I don't think I'm going to be able to record that for a while yet, so be patient with that. Fuse Man's theme is probably my overall favorite song out of the main 8 stages, and fitting considering it was the first track we ever heard from the game, given the original release trailer, development trailer rather. But it's just nice to have another Mega Man game, and I really hope it does well. Also, after playing the sequel, it's weird to come back and fight the Exploders, because in the sequel, they were more or less treated as an instant kill reset to a room, which was an interesting change. Ultimately, going into the Caverna De Pollo final challenge here, it's just a lot of the enemies we fought throughout the game. I think almost every variety, even the little wrestler guy we fought back in the canal area. So bring your best and prepare to do a lot of fighting. Special moves are your best bet for damage as usual, though. At the end of the day, we have a very familiar looking door. Welcome back to Chuckmool. It's time we actually find out what the main purpose behind any area like this is for. That's certainly a unique looking item. What we just got is called an orb. There are, I think, 5 orbs in the game that give us a mask fragment. In order to get the best ending in the game, we need to get all, I think, 5 of them. They're hidden pretty well throughout the world, and you usually need to do some challenges for them. That's the first one, and we'll be getting a lot of them in cleanup. Just prepare to do the game's hardest challenges to get them. We'll probably be getting another one next part if I'm recalling the layout of the game correctly. So, yeah, look forward to that. And now, what do you say we actually finish off the last side quest in Santa Luchita, because I think there's only one left in this area. You might recall the mariachi band from part 1. I think the very first side quest in Santa Luchita I talked about. We need the dashing derp derp in order to break these blocks in order to clear it. There's the missing bandmate. Gracias, señor. I am grateful to you. Now let's celebrate with beautiful musica. Musica? I can't speak Spanish. I can understand a lot of the words just based off context clues, but... yeah. Admittedly, nowadays, the foreign language I probably know the most of is German. Because it's what I've been doing on Duolingo. Back in high school, I took a Chinese class. In fact, I was even featured in the newspaper because our Chinese class, which was the only one in the school district, not even the school district, I think the county at the time, got interviewed by the semi-local newspaper for the city I'm next to. I didn't do too well in Chinese class past the first year, though. That's a very hard language to learn, especially if you're as old as I was at the time, because early middle school. I'm learning more German at this point. I'm doing pretty well. I can definitely read it better than I can speak it, or even write it, just because that's how my brain works. I'm better at reading than I am at speaking. But it's nice to know another language, especially because one of my best friends has been able to speak German from a very young age. Either way, we're in the Sierra now, which is a very climactic-looking area, and for a good reason. If you're playing Guacamelee Gold Edition, this is actually the second-to-last area in the game, so if I were doing Gold Edition, cleanup would actually probably be coming up early next part. But since we're playing Super Turbo Championship Edition, we have a bit more to go. And I love the music here, by the way. And this is where we get introduced to a new enemy, Elite Skeleton types. They teleport around whenever you do enough damage to them. If I'm recalling correctly, these are Super Turbo Championship Edition exclusive, but honestly, it's been so long since I played Gold, I honestly could see myself forgetting if these guys existed. So if they were in there, I'm sorry. I just don't remember. I believe they are, though, just given especially the art style for them. You can generally tell if something's new to Super Turbo Championship Edition because it also has a certain slightly different look to the game. For instance, the silver coins, Intenso, even the new areas look a bit different design-wise. Like the lighting effects in particular are a bit different. I'll take that stamina. Now, admittedly, something I've actually never experimented with any Guacamelee game is the multiplayer, because you can get up to 4 players, and I imagine that gets really chaotic and fun, but I've just never done it. Also, on the topic of me using the shop, one thing the sequel changed about the shop is that the only things you actually use costumes for in the sequel is cosmetics. They are entirely cosmetic in the sequel. They have no extra effects. They look a lot better, too. In fact, you also get alternate characters to play as in the sequel, which I thought was pretty funny. Like, Wait Chivo, you can play as him, and it's hilarious to see that old man just kicking all sorts of ass. I imagine that if I ever did a multiplayer Guacamelee 2 LP, it would probably be with Scott. And I don't know why, I just have a feeling he would pick Wait Chivo. I just have the feeling in my gut that he would pick that character. It's very him. And this little combat section is actually really sucky because they throw a lot of the giant skeletons at you. And while Intenso helps for doing damage to them all, that can be a lot of really powerful hits coming at you really quickly if you're being not careful enough. admittedly, coming back to Guacamelee 1 after beating 2, and I mentioned this earlier on the part, it is weird having some mechanics missing, or even some of the refinements and combo stuff. And it's weird to say, but it's a case of first game in a series syndrome, despite only being a series of 2 games. The second game just refines the first game's formula so much that it just feels better. And I really do hope that Guacamelee gets more games, because I love this series so much. I think they probably need to change more up for the sequel to the sequel, but if it happens, I would love to see it. And now we're going to see me do a bit of a stupid. I'm actually going to backtrack to that room that was to the right for a moment, because I think I can do something there, but no, you actually cannot. At least not yet. You can't do something about that until I think the end of the area, and this is more so a symptom of me playing the game before, but it being a while since I last played it, so I'm thinking ahead, like, 8 different steps. And even then, I'm even more unfamiliar because, again, I played Gold more than I have Super Turbo Championship Edition. That's just a symptom of me being, oh, is this the right thing, or am I thinking of the other thing? I do have to wonder, though, in the case they do a Super Turbo Championship Edition of sorts for Guacamelee 2, what would they add to the game? Because that game already feels a bit more full than 1, just on content. So it would feel kind of redundant in a way to do a secondary version of it. At the same time, though, I won't turn down more Guacamelee, you know what I mean? Ow. This is probably where some of the game's best platforming is when it's not at the tool tree, by the way. Just because this area is so platforming focused compared to some other areas. I mean, don't get me wrong, platforming is always a focus in the game, but in the dungeons, it certainly feels like they're more focused on alternate paths, puzzle solving, if there is any, and combat, whereas in these very open areas, they're much more focused on the platform you can do within it, and I love it when the games do that, because honestly, given Juan's moveset in the 2 games, I almost feel like the platforming is the high point of the Guacamelee games. A bit odd to say that for a Metroidvania, where exploration's usually the main, like, big drawing point. But in these games, I honestly think it's the straight-up platforming. And mind you, like, there's also Metroidvanias that specialize, I think, in combat comparatively. Now, if I'm recalling the layout correctly, this is where things are going to diverge a bit. Luchador, the bridge is busted up ahead. It was the only direct path to the top of the Sierra. The Pico de Gallo lies just below us, and some say there is a way to get further into the mountains through the Pico. Welcome to the Turbo Championship Edition exclusive stuff. You can progress further up, and I think it might be an item or 2 up there for you at the moment, but for right now, we want to fall all the way down here, back to where Tostada gave us that entrance to the desert, basically. We are now in that room. Further along into it, I admit, because now there's platforms we can take advantage of, mostly because now we actually have the ability to use the dimension swap, but yeah. Also, I love how the lava travels upwards when you're in the World of Dead here. That looks awesome. And this is potentially the area I am probably the least familiar with in the game, just because, like I said, STCE exclusive thing. And because of that, you'll see me probably fumbling around a bit more, or failing a bit more here. One room in particular comes to mind in this part alone. Next part, I honestly forget what comes up. Oh, you guys.
If you expect me to resurrect your compadre, you'd better hold up your end of the bargain. You promised me an endless army of skeletons. Where are they?
Grand Kalaka, our forces not only grow in number, but ferocity. Also, you'll be happy to know we've worked on our stretch goals, too.
Oh? Allow me to present
Baby Kalaka!
That's right, a special pet for all our backers. What is the meaning of this?
Are you my mommy?
Fools, I've had enough of your shenanigans. Now build me my army. Of course, Grand Kalaka, our efforts will be redoubled.
Come on, baby Kalaka. There's some more milk waiting for you back home.
That was pretty cute. It's because of scenes like that, though, that one thing I have to admit I like about Guacamelee 2 and STCE of 1 is that it almost feels reactionary to the game's reception itself. For instance, the removal of a lot of the memes in 1 feels like a reaction to the criticism of the presence of all of them to begin with. And in 2, they just make fun of that to the extreme in one particular area, and I love it. 2's writing, well, like, don't get me wrong, 1's writing when it's funny is really good, but 2 just takes it and runs with it, and it's amazing. I'll take more health. I want to say there's more health for you to get in the game in 1. But at the same time, I can't tell that's a symptom of them spreading items across into the new areas, just so there's, you know, more standard items for you to get in areas like the canal here, like the health ups and such, or if there are actually more items for you to get. This is an annoying little combat section that also gets a bit of a revisit in 2, just because it is very easy to knock yourself or get knocked into the lava by enemies if you're not being careful enough. And given the fact this is a brawler and that makes you inherently a bit more reckless, it's pretty easy for that to happen. The setup for this puzzle room is equivalent in 2, though, is probably, well, not puzzle room, combat room is probably a bit more annoying, though, just because 2 also raises the difficulty quite a bit. In the right way, I think, at times, don't get me wrong, but it's definitely notable. In a way, a couple of ways, though, seeing the new content for STCE makes me wonder if a lot of the ideas for 2 they started getting during the development of Super Turbo Championship Edition, because a lot of the platforming stuff or new combat challenges are very similar to ones that would appear in 2, even beyond the whole thing of it's the sequel, they're going to reuse some ideas to begin with. Which makes me wonder exactly when 2's development started. I don't think that's actually known yet. If it is, I'm just not paying attention and I'm stupid, which has happened before. I'll take that health up again. One thing I think this game does right as well is that it does something that Metroid series does right, in that if you're going out of your way, you get items at a really satisfying pace, compared to some other types of Metroidvanias that come to mind, where item power-ups are very scarcely located. And that makes each power-up feel a bit more important, yes, but it also means that your exploration doesn't feel like it's as well rewarded. Oh, thank God for hitboxes. I would have fallen all the way down to the ecto cooler, I guess. Honestly, a very minor satisfying thing that happens in games like this, though, is when you knock an enemy down, and even though it didn't happen there, you see the combo count go up because you killed them off screen. That just feels right. An admitted thing I think Guacamelee 2 does better with the soundtrack, though, because Guacamelee 1's soundtrack, the more I listen to them, the more I realize it does the Mario World kind of thing, where a lot of it is the same song and melody, or background beat at least, remixed into different ways. And it's a good melody, but if I recall at least, Guacamelee 2's soundtrack was quite a bit more varied. And you know what? Credit to it for that. This is annoying. Admittedly, though, it's annoying because my fear is a bit worse. Admittedly, there's always the threat of instant kill here, just because of the lava, but in Guacamelee 2, this would be unavoidable instant death in a lot of ways, because here in 1, exploders aren't instant kill. In 2, as I mentioned before, if one explodes, you're basically reset to the start of the combat. So, whoops. It's one of those things where my brain is just mixing the 2 games up, and it makes me a bit more anxious than I probably should be. At the same time, though, exploders being instant kill in 2 makes them feel more important to the battle. Because in 1, what strategy I believe you can take, if I'm recalling how they work correctly, is right before they explode, you can just take a bogus hit from, like, a skeleton and completely ignore their higher damage output from the explosion. In 2, you're not invulnerable. You're never invulnerable to them. That's just one of those little things. Either way, while I have some time, some other things I've been doing recently, aside from schoolwork, which is schooly, is playing Octopath. I'm a good bit of the way through Octopath. I think I mentioned before in some other video I've recorded that hasn't come out yet even, I think. But I'm most of the way through. At this point, I'm just equipment farming, and I've been doing it for like 60 in-game hours, I think, even though I do the reset trick just to save a little bit of time. And yeah, it's tedious. I shouldn't really be doing it this much, but I'm at the point where I'm just like, I've done it so much that why do I quit now? It's that whole kind of thing of I'm so close to the end with the farming that stopping now just seems wrong. Because the thing I'm farming for, I'm not going to say the exact item name, or item names, because there's more than one, but there's 2 types of them. 7 or so have a 3% drop rate from certain things you can try to fight. Others have a 10% drop rate. I haven't gone for any of the 10% yet. I'm focusing on the 3% for right now. But as you can imagine, 3% drop rate, that's pretty low. It's annoying. But it's worth it for the stat ups. That's what I keep telling myself anyway. This is a very Guacamelee 2 thing right here. Environments being shifted depending on the world more than just the usual blocks. The lava freezes when you're in the world of the dead. However, you actively need to switch to the world of the living just to get through some standard blocks. Guacamelee 2 does this kind of design a lot, and it's just weird seeing the comparison. I also love the way the lava looks. Though, Guacamelee 2 has one particular room that lava is the most annoying thing in, I swear to God. I also like this just because it adds a bit more variety to what we've already seen throughout the game. Because when you get down to it, the most the world switching does in Guacamelee 1, aside from this from memory, is the usual block and enemy switches. Having an actual puzzle environment like this, beyond the whole block switching, just feels so good. Whee! I always, for some reason, think there should be an item up where these 2 skeletons are, but I don't think there is. It's just one of those things that my brain does, where it sees that in things like Super Metroid. Particularly, that one room towards the end of Ridley's lair that you go back to standard Norfair with, where the last, I think, missile tank is in the heart-shaped room, depending on how you go through the game. That's usually the last one for me, just because of how I play Super Metroid, but yeah. This is a room you do need to rush through just because there's lava chasing you, and that is instant kill lava no matter what dimension you switch to. However, I don't think you need to actively fight any of the enemies despite there being a locked door at the top. I think you only need to fight the enemy at the top just because the lava will automatically kill any others. It also, admittedly, with the way that this area is designed, could be not only the fact that they got more ideas because they may have been working on the sequel at that point, it could have just been the time between Gold's release and Super Turbo Championship Edition's release that they got these extra ideas. Oh, hi there. Wow, that's a big skeleton.
Skeleton complaining, joint pain and weak bones. Skeleton cows not producing milk. We must be at the quarters or Calaca will never resurrect our dear Pedro.
Tibula, fibula, it's also complicated. You know there's 27 bones in a hand.
Their hands are just giant spikes.
Maybe if you got your hands dirty for a change.
These delicate fingers must be preserved for picking. Besides, some people are just natural managers. On that note, let the inspection commence. Okay, let's have a look-see. This one looks fine. Oh, feisty. I like this one. Oh my, what a fine bone structure. Let's see what you can do.
Great screeching Skeletor!
Send these ones off to that wretched forest. Let's stay on track. Next match!
You actually get money for that.
Yes, yes, now this is more like it.
Excellent, another fine candidate. I really wish we did the dashing derp derp right here, by the way.
3 out of 3, I think that's a new record. Wait a minute.
Hey, where's your sombrero?
Bah, it's that Fleshman from the canal! You're proving harder to get rid of than that wild pack of dogs that chased us out of Santa Luchita.
I would have thought that a day in a puppy petting zoo could turn so quickly.
Meat man, but you've wasted enough of our time. We've got prototypes to complete and quotas to meet. Why don't you take like why don't you take our creation for a spin? I can speak.
And now we got dark variations of the standard skeletons with very Neanderthalic skulls. They are more powerful, and their teleportation really sucks here just because they're such big targets that them immediately being gone means that's much more damage you're just gonna miss. On the whole, though, the Dark Skeletons are just an annoyance more than likely, because I say their power's raised, but I think that might just be my brain playing tricks on me, honestly. The teleportation is definitely the thing they add, though, and that is certainly an annoyance all its own. Either way, with that, I'm actually going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys so much for sticking around for 7 years plus 1 week. And next time on Guacamelee Super Turbo Championship Edition, we're going to be continuing through Pico de Gallo and see what we can do with this area. And that might be sooner than you think, because if I recall our subscriber count correctly, we've been at a certain count for a little bit now. See you guys then.